Hello and welcome to What Makes This Bike Great, and today we're talking about the Suzuki GSX-R1000K5 and K6. Now if you've seen one of my past Blast from the Past videos from this very space, you'll see that we talked about the GSX-R1000K5 and what it was like back in the day, what we said about it in MCN, all the performance testing that we did, all the group tests that we did, and also I spoke a little bit about my time running the GSX-R1000K5 as a long-term test bike. I had one from a couple of years and I did everything from racing it every weekend to doing big European trips and everything in between. It's fair to say that the GSX-R1000K5 and K6 has cemented itself as an icon in superbike history. But are we just looking through rose-tinted specs with this bike? Is it really that good? So to find out, I'm going to take this bike out for a spin. This is actually a K6. You can tell it's a K6 because of this turquoise stripe, but other than that, it's exactly the same as the K5. It'd be really interesting to see how it stacks up actually, because as my day job, I ride all the latest and greatest bikes as a road tester for MCN. And this is a 19-year-old superbike. Can it really cut it against modern bikes? Is it really as good as we remember?
Well, reunited. I've got some memories of this bike all the way through 2005 and 6, running it as an MCN long-termer, riding it all around Europe, racing every weekend on it, turning it from a road bike to a race bike. I mean, it's very analogue, isn't it? Just got the analogue rev counter, got gear position indicator, which is kind of quite novel back then. Digital display, not too many buttons on the switchgear, not like now, just full of buttons for electronics. This has got no ABS, no traction control, no wheelie control. There you go. Oh, listen to that. That just barks. Fantastic. And batting this thing between your legs, it just feels like there's no weight at all, there's no stodge. One of the things that we all used to love about the K5 and why we still think it's an amazing bike is really from the grunt from its engine. So after this bike came the K7 with a shorter stroke, kind of revier engine, and from then on in Suzuki kind of chased the power because they had to. All the competition were getting more and more powerful. But the great thing about the K5, it's got 159 bhp at the rear wheel when we tested it back in the day from BSD, but it's just got a lot of grunt. And this is just on standard gearing, and it's just, oh, it's just instant. There's no waiting for the power to pick up. Just incredible. It just feels so direct. You know, modern day superbikes are more powerful. You kind of got to wait for the power to come in a little bit. It's just delicious off the throttle. Absolutely fantastic. The other thing it's famed for is its lightness. So back in the day, Suzuki claimed 166 kilos dry. Obviously those dry figures really meant nothing, because how could you ever check that? How could you ever test a dry figure? You can't. But it is light. Wow. It just changes direction beautifully. I mean, I'm spoiled today. This bike is on super courses. There's no mush in the system. There's no, you just feel everything is just so direct. Oh. This does not feel like a bike that's close to 20 years old. Today's bikes are faster, but you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't have 200 horsepower and a big fat mid-range, even with shift cam with the BMW. It just doesn't happen. So all the good stuff with this bike kind of happens at road speeds, which is why it's so engaging as a road bike. Of course, it's not too shabby around a track either. I don't know if I'll be able to persuade brother who owns this to ever take it around the track. I don't think I'd want to be honest. It's such a clean example. It's beautiful. It's done 1966 miles. It rides like a new bike. Not often you find a bike this age that feels so tight. One of the weak points of GSX-R1000s, especially when I used to race one with the brakes. But this one's got braided lines and Brembo master cylinder, so it shouldn't get any of the fade that the standard setup's got. The riding position isn't too extreme. This has got rear sets on it, so pegs are a little bit high, but the bars aren't too low. It just feels so natural. You know, it's easy to be accused of looking through rose-tinted specs when you're riding something like this, but it's really, really good. You know, even compared to modern-day Panigale V4s and S1000RRs and Fireblades, this is just sort of it's just got some meat and potatoes power. It's just lovely. The ride quality is pretty good. It's got standard suspension settings. It's quite plush. Doesn't shake your fillings out. Suzuki got it so right with this bike. It's a shame really that, I suppose it's BMW's fault really for raising the bar so high when the S1000RR came out in 2010. Then everybody was forced to join the power race. Really on the road you don't need anything more than this. Even this is too much, but at least it's enjoyable at road speeds. You don't feel like it's kind of looking back at you and saying, come on, come on. It's quite happy just to flex its muscles down in the low end of the rev range. Listen to that, just picks up so quick. This has also got a quick shifter on it, aftermarket HM quick shifter. And Suzuki gearboxes are just so crisp anyway. It's beautiful. If this was a new bike now, and we were riding this right now on a launch, you'd be just as gushing. It's not because it's an old friend. It's a flipping good bike. Oh, this is what we used to call the wing and bends. This is where I grew up. I guess this was where I learned to ride when I was 16 and 17. So we're not going to fly through here obviously, but this is going to show us if the GSX-R1000 still handles as well as we remember. It does. It just rolls beautifully into corners. You don't have to force it. It doesn't drop too viciously. It just goes exactly where you point it, and with good tyres on, it just brings a whole shebang up to date. That gearbox. Oh. Wow, this is incredible. Absolutely flipping fantastic. Oh, this feels so nimble. It honestly feels like a 750. Apart from that having quite a lot of bite, the chassis and the way it turns is very 750-ish. In later group tests, sort of through the 2010s, the GSX-R kind of fell further behind, especially when you compared it to the R1s, like 15 R1, 16 ZX10 of the day, S1000RR, but still a quick bite. Sounds absolutely fantastic. Braking feel on this is much better than the old standard setup. Oh, it's really good, really good. I had a racing master cylinder on my K5 race bike back in the day, and it just sharpens things beautifully. Oh, right, I need some fuel. A nice summer sunny evening on the GSX-R1000K5 or 6. Doesn't get much better than this. I absolutely love it. Well, if there's one thing that's almost as good as taking the GSX-R around the track, it's taking a GSX-R through a tunnel.
You can't beat the sound of a GSX-R1000. Now, this particular bike is mint condition. It's done less than 2,000 miles, and it's pretty much standard, but it's got a few well-chosen mods. Probably the biggest upgrade is with regards to the brakes. It's got a Brembo master cylinder, brake lines and Brembo monoblock calipers. It's also got rear sets, an HM quick shifter and a nice Alcantara seat. But those little mods aside, it's completely standard. Now, as I've said in a previous video, if you wanted to improve the GSX-R1000 a little bit more, the next place to go really would be regarding suspension. You could fit an aftermarket rear shock with a spring to suit your weight, fork internals with your own springs. But to be honest, as a road bike, it's perfectly good standard. You know, with these modern day Pirelli Supercorsa tyres, you can't want for anything more. So, does the GSX-R1000 K5 and K6 live up to the hype? Absolutely. Is it as quick as a modern day superbike? Well, yes, on the road it's every inch as quick as a modern day superbike. You can't ride a modern day superbike anywhere near its limit on the road, and you can't ride a GSX-R1000 K5 or K6 anywhere its limit on the road. So, you know, both bikes are the same speed basically, and the GSX-R1000 in many ways is easier to ride because it's just got so much grunt. It might not have all the electronic bells and whistles, but to be honest, on the road it doesn't really need them. On the track, this might be a different proposition up against the latest and greatest superbikes. Obviously newer superbikes have got a lot more power, they've got a lot of electronic sophistication that help you and guide you around the track, safer as well. I mean, this won't hang around. You could win the fast group on an old GSX-R1000 like this, no problem at all. But really, without comparing them back to back now with a superbike, it's impossible to say what's going to be the fastest. But from experience, going through the years when MCN has group tested superbikes on track, as the kind of the noughties rolled through, the GSX-R slowly became kind of it dropped down the list. It became slower and slower compared to the modern stuff. Even when the GSX-R1000R came out in 2017, which was the kind of the most recent GSX-R1000, even that kind of struggled against the Panigales of the world, the RSV4 factories of the world, the S1000RRs, and it would even more now. Now the blade's taken another level, the Ducati and the BMW are even faster. So, you know, in absolute outright lap times, a modern bike is faster. But who's chasing absolute lap times around a track? If you're going to go on a track day and you want to have fun, you want to enjoy yourself, and let's face it, not pay big money to do that, a GSX-R1000K5 or K6 is going to just give you massive smiles. Talking of price, where are we now? We're kind of end of the spring 2024. And if you search the classifieds, you'll find GSX-R1000K5s and 6s kind of between £4,500 and £8,000. For a real mint one, you could probably pay a lot more. Now, that's obviously not loose change, but that is a lot of bike for the money. And when you add in the value of a bike like this, how iconic it is, how great it makes you feel, how superbly it handles, the noise, the grunt from the engine, and just the sheer excitement of riding a big, powerful GSX-R1000. Well, you know, that is what really makes this bike great. So that's that for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. But just before I sign off, I just want to say a big thank you to my little brother Ben for trusting me on this GSX-R1000 of his. I mean, I wouldn't let me out on it, especially as it's done so few miles, but I treated it with a lot of care. It's a beautiful bike, and yeah, he's a very lucky boy. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos like this coming very soon.